So everyone is talking. If you're an MMA fan, you're talking about the Bellator show that was on this past week, which was an excellent show. If you like Michael Chandler, you know that guy is a prospect and a beast. The guy that took it to Eddie Alvarez, he's a great fighter. Bubba Jenkins, who has a lot of potential. There was also Ben Askren, who people don't like, but I think he's got this great heel charisma, and he knows how to, he called the crowd communists, which was pretty funny. And then there was the announcement. So they sent out a rumor that Roy Jones Jr. and Rampage were going to fight, and they even flew Roy Jones Jr. in, and he was sitting there in the front row. Rampage came out. I swerved you all. I swerved the internet, which, to be honest with you, what does that really achieve? It's not like, to be honest, I mean, well done, you swerved us. Wow. And then his real opponent comes out, and I hear Eminem mosh, and I am thinking to myself, you're kidding me. And sure enough, I just see that familiar flag and that little bouncing to the left and then to the right and to the left and to the right, and that bald head, not the blonde hair, Tito Ortiz comes marching out in his red t-shirt, and he's come out of retirement, and he is going to fight Quinton Rampage Jackson on a Bellator pay-per-view. I was like, whoa, and they're training partners as well. It's like I'm watching them, and it was like a pro wrestling angle. And then I thought about what I'd seen, and I wish I'd done a video, because I would have looked like a prophet. But after I saw that, and then there was the August the 1st warnings for the last 6 days of this mystery person showing up to TNA, I said, you know what? I bet Tito Ortiz has signed one of those deals like King Mo and Rampage have. And sure enough, I get a message from my friend, Tito Ortiz and TNA. Oh god, lol, LOL. And I watched it, and he came out and he did these little, bouncing thing with the flag to the left, to the right, and then he just stood still, he's like that, and Rampage was working himself up in the ring, like, oh god, why is he here? Trying to generate some hype, I guess. And I went on the internet, and everyone is okay, I'm gonna have to split this into two. So I'll talk about the MMA aspect first, and I'll talk about the pro wrestling aspect first. So the MMA aspect, there are some people who are alright with the idea because they realise that Bellator needs something, and they're not this big promotion. They're nowhere near as big as the UFC, even though they're on Spike TV, and they need something to boost them up, something that can give them a bit of a lift. And they signed Quinton Rampage Jackson, and obviously they want his fights to be a big deal. And Tito Ortiz, who came out of retirement to fight Rampage, is the thing that they think is going to be the big deal. And on one hand, if you look at Tito's track record, I can see why you'd think that. Look, some people have different views of his career, and I was a fan of his. But I'll say this, okay, how can I word this? He was a huge star for the UFC, and I know that I can point to people who are not necessarily MMA fans, but I can show them that, this image, and they'll go, oh, that's that guy from the UFC, that Tito Ortiz guy, and that's saying something. And for a second, if those bloody kids make any more noise again, I swear to God, I'm going to go Christian Bale on them, if you know what I mean. But anyways, you can show Tito Ortiz's image, and I know that people will know who that is, and they know the face, and they know the hair, and they know the flame trousers, and they know who he is. And I believe, and this has always been my belief, that he kind of was responsible for the boom in the UFC. And I think in 2002, that first fight with Ken Shamrock showed that there was potential and still life in this brand of fighting. And then I think that when he came back in 2005, was it 2005, 2006, when he did the Ultimate Fighter 3, I think season 1 and 2 were very successful. Season 3 was a boom. That was a hot year for the UFC when they did that, because when he returned and they had him and Ken that show is getting a lot of people talking, and it created a lot of, it gave a lot of people a lot of opportunities and momentum. We got Michael Bisping out of that, and he ran with the momentum he got off of that show, and is, a UFC mainstay and a contender for the belt. But that season did so well, and that fight did very well financially as a pay-per-view and as a live gate, and Tito was the ticket that year. And then when Tito Ortiz had the rematch on TV, again, big number on television, and a lot of people watched that. And I'll tell you what, that fight was quite a big deal, even though it was Ken Shamrock and it was a tune-up fight for the Chuck Liddell one. It was huge, and people watched it, and lots of people talked about it, and it was very interesting. And I know people who I work with who, actually not the people I work with now, but people I worked with before, that got into the UFC around that season, and they were very intrigued by Tito Ortiz, and he has this charisma, and he has that look, and he has that aura about him, and he gets people in. He might not be the best fighter in the world, but he has this way of just drawing you in. He gets you interested, and he was a big draw for the UFC, and he did a 1 million pay-per-view buy rate against Chuck Liddell, I believe, and he was a big star for the UFC, and he was a big deal. But I always felt that after about 2007, that Ortiz's skill level was not on par with the top 10 in his weight class, and he had these moments and these bursts against guys. He had the fight with Lyoto Machida. No, he had the fight with Rashad Evans, and that was a sign for me with the back injury. And he fought Rashad, and he did well in the first round, and he had a good ending to the second round, but you could see he was getting tired. The back was playing up. Rashad started to take over, and I knew, I could kind of see the deterioration of his skills. And then he was off for a long time, and there was supposed to be a rematch, actually. And then he fought Lyoto Machida, and I knew that Machida could give him problems, and Ortiz nearly choked him out in the end, I think. And then Ortiz was off for a really long time. The whole dispute with Dana White, renegotiating a contract, all the war of words with Dana, almost going to Strikeforce, having surgery on his back, because that was the big thing. It was his back. My lower back is shot. My lower back is the reason why I can't give you the fights that you need to see. Talked about his back for a long time. Re-signed with the UFC. Was initially supposed to fight Mark Coleman, and then was thrown in there against Forrest Griffin due to some injuries that had happened. And again, it was the same thing. I watched the fight, and you're expecting, well, it depends. You watch the fight and you could just know, look, he had a great first round, and he always does. He always has a great first round. But then the second and third rounds, you can kind of see he's starting to get tired, and his body is not what it is. And this was a guy that was known for having very good cardio after the Frank Shamrock fight. And you can just see his body starting to wear down and get tired, and then he gets, surpassed by these guys. And then he fought, who did he fight after that? He had surgery. He was supposed to fight Chuck Liddell, and he didn't. And then he had surgery, and then he fought Matt Hamill, and it was the same thing, the same story. He's supposed to fight Nogueira, the lightweight Nogueira, and again, I knew Nogueira didn't fight him in the end. He fought Ryan Bader as a replacement on a UFC show, and it was almost like that show. It was almost like a farewell. You were preparing yourself for a farewell, because you've just seen him fight a similar fighter with Matt Hamill, who's a better wrestler than he is, and can take him down and smother him and get all over him. And the unthinkable happens in some respects, and Tito catches him with a punch to the chin. He goes down. Ortiz just grabs a guillotine choke and then taps out Ryan Bader, a guy that was in a #1 contenders fight prior to that, and beats him in the first round. And it was nice to see Tito get that win. And I'll tell you what, it was like this. That period, it was like Tito, it was like everyone, because Tito gets a lot of flack, because of how he is and how he carries himself. And it was like that one night, everyone loved Tito Ortiz, and for the 2 weeks after that, everyone loved Tito Ortiz. And then he filled in when Phil Davis got injured and fought Rashad Evans. And again, I think a lot of people wanted to see him do well, and there was this intrigue there again about him. And people were even talking, well, if he beats Rashad Evans, they could actually put him in there against John Jones. They could actually do Tito versus John Jones, and it would be like almost like Rocky Balboa, the last Rocky film. It would be exactly like that, and they almost did that. And well, we watched the fight, and I knew, reality kicks in. And I was like, look, if Ortiz is just getting some of these things in his stand-up now, but Rashad has gotten those things in his stand-up for a while, has fought the best, and he's a different fighter from the last time, this could be a hard fight. And sure enough, Rashad overwhelmed him and beat him, and yeah, I just wasn't surprised by that. But it was like the balloon fell off the rose, the bubble was burst a little bit, and then he fought Nogueira and he beat him. But Ortiz came out well out of that whole Rashad Evans thing the second time, because I think a lot of people really respected him, and even Rashad was really respectful towards him afterwards about taking the fight on short notice. This was a risk and he took it, and I think a lot of people warmed to Tito again. He was really popular again. It was quite a nice thing to see. And then he fought Nogueira and lost to Nogueira, and I think again that skill level was showing again. And then he fought Forrest Griffin in his last fight, and at that point I was kind of done in that sense with his MMA career, and I was ready as a fan to call it a day. Look, thank you for everything you ever done as an MMA fighter, for all the big fights. You were one of the fighters that maintained my interest. I want to see you retire and just have a good life outside of fighting. And he had that last fight with Forrest. Again, it was really close, but Forrest beat him, and then he retired, and it looked like he was retiring and he was at peace. But obviously he's got that relationship with Jenna Jameson, and to touch on that very briefly, I don't want to completely slate that woman, to tell you the truth, but that relationship doesn't look healthy to me. And just anyone that wants to, you'll know what I'm getting at. The drama that goes on, it's not healthy. And when you've got that, how can you focus on other things in your life? And you don't need that energy. And I think that they're not good for each other in that respect. But here, me giving relationship advice of all fucking people, Jesus help us. But I'm ready to be done with him. He managed Chris Cyborg. There was all of that, but I got the feeling he still wanted to fight again. Then he was talking about, I could have had John Jones in my prime, and then we fast forward to now, and he's resigned with Bellator. And what do I think? Alright, I can see why you would do it. Catch some lightning in a bottle. Hopefully you'll have that one big number, and if it's good for just a one-shot deal and you get that, that buzz going, then yeah, and if you promote it well, you can. And you've got two guys that know how to talk and they know how to sell fights. The one thing is that we both know that both guys are not in their prime anymore. Tito has not been in his prime since 2005, really. Let's tell the truth. He has not been in his prime since 2005. And even then, people were saying, man, he needs to hang it up soon. And now it's 2013. And I do like him, but let's face facts. His knees are bad, his neck is bad, his back is bad. He's got a lot of injuries there. He's not, as healthy as he would like to be. I know that his body needs a lot of just repair. Let's just tell the truth. And I believe that that's had an effect on his career and why he didn't look so hot after a while. And as for Rampage has looked unmotivated, and as a result, people don't think he's in his prime anymore at all, and people don't view him as a guy that can be in the top 10 and hang as a top 10 fighter. But you've got a fight with two guys that know how to sell fights, and if they know how to sell you the bill of goods, if they know how to sell you the golden goose, then those two know how to do it, and they probably will. Let's hope they don't trade it for McDonald's when we watch the fight. What do I think would happen in the fight? I think Rampage would beat him. I've always thought Rampage was a better fighter. He's a good enough wrestler, but he's a much better, Ortiz just about looks comfortable on his feet, whereas Rampage is very comfortable on his feet. And look what Rampage did to Chuck Liddell, and Ortiz couldn't do that to him. So, I've always believed Rampage was the better fighter, even when they were both coming up and they were teammates. And I don't buy into them having this heated grudge that they're going to promote on Bellator. It's just a way of selling a fight. I don't buy into it. They're friends, trust me. Those two are friends. They've known each other for years. I think Tito used to know when he was young, before he was when he was coming up. I think they're just going to do some fight selling. Tito was doing his little, his big head at Rampage. That's fight selling. Right, as for Tito in pro wrestling, what do I think? I've always thought that he would be perfect as a pro wrestler, to tell you the truth. I've always thought that this guy's a worker for real. This guy speaks incarnate. I swear to God, Tito is a worker. I love it when he used to do his fights and he used to go, "This is the best camp ever. First time, no pain in my neck, no pain in my back. I'm pain-free now." Then he'd have his fight. He wouldn't do so well and he'd be like, "I had a cracked skull. I had a cracked skull." He's a tremendous worker. He knows how to get people excited. And if he was involved in pro wrestling in a way where it was like promotional stuff, then I'd be like, I think this is awesome. He's going to be involved in the storylines and presumably the matches. Am I interested in seeing that? Ugh. I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know how much pro wrestling training he's willing to have, how much pro wrestling training his body can have. And if you guys, the MMA people, think... I know that there's a stigma about pro wrestling, but you can ask MMA fighters who've done it. They were more sore doing pro wrestling than they were doing MMA, and that's saying something. I think he would be a great interview and a great talker and a great promotional guy. Do I think he can be an in-ring pro wrestler? I don't know. Do I think it's the best idea? When I think about it, TNA have tried with MMA fighters doing pro wrestling for quite some time. They tried with Frank Trigg back in the day, well, 2007, 2008 kind of time. They tried before that. They had Ken Shamrock down there. I know that they had King Mo sign, and we still haven't seen him a year after he's been there. But he actually wants to learn how to wrestle. And they've had Rampage Jackson there, who just wants to be a wrestler but doesn't actually train in wrestling. And I think when push comes to shove, he's going to do MMA more than pro wrestling. And Tito Ortiz. And the thing that interests a lot of people, I mean, there's a lot of negativity about this. First of all, look at how it was promoted. It was promoted on YouTube 6 days before. When realistically, if I was a promoter, and I'm not, but if I was a promoter and I had that angle, I would have said, I want 4 weeks of promotion of this August 1st anonymous warning. I want it on the end of every single Impact, and I want the reveal. So it builds up, builds up, builds up, builds up. People are hyped up, people are talking, and then you get to the final, like, past week 4, and August 1st warning is going to debut. Now you can maximize all of that promotion and get a good number and get people talking and have everyone like, wow, what was that? Instead, you did it on YouTube where you've got 22,000 people watching it, and 22,000 compared to 1 million. I mean, that's a big difference, and that's a big, I mean, come on. Anyways, I think it could have been promoted a little bit more effectively. I think they wanted it to go viral and everything like that. He showed up to no reaction. Granted, that crowd was dead, but that must have felt a little bit deflating when he came out and he's doing like that and no reaction to the when the Aces and Eights in the main event Matthew were feuding. He came out. I've seen a lot of negativity about this. A lot of people do not want to see him there. I know that MMA diehards are like, oh, for fuck's sake, why are you even there? And I know that pro wrestling fans that know of him are like, huh? And some people are like, who is he? And so there's interesting opinions. I know some people who do not want to see him there. And what do I think? Again, just in a promotional role and something like that, but as a long-term investment, I don't know. It takes a long time to learn how to become an adequate pro wrestler. It takes a long time to know how to read the match, to know how to work, to know how to sell, to know how to bump, to know how to get ring psychology. You need to be in there with guys with years of experience that if you want to learn quick. And not everyone's Kurt Angle, and not everyone's Brock Lesnar, and not everyone's The Rock or Randy Orton, people who picked it up so quickly for all kinds of reasons. And do I think Tito's one of those guys? I don't think so. Do I think he could be really useful as like a promotional tool? Yes, I do. Do I think the cross promotion is a good idea? Yes, I do. Do I think that it's interesting that they have fired all these people and let go of people and fired Jesse Sorensen after he broke his neck for the company and told him he had a job for life, and then fired him and didn't pay for Zima Ion's surgery, didn't even help him with the surgery from what we know, and fired all these people and lowballed people on contracts and released them because they allegedly don't have the sources to fund this man. And then they bring in someone that's Tito Ortiz. And let's be real, listen, Tito ain't there for chump change. He's asking for money and he's getting big money out of it, and from what I understand, he needs the money. So I reckon he's making big time money. And when you have him on your payroll and Rampage Jackson on your payroll, and Hulk Hogan on your payroll, and Jeff Hardy on your payroll. These guys don't come cheap, and when it costs you 1.2 million to do an Impact, that is worrying, especially when it's believed that you're not making money and you're losing money. So, I mean, I wish them well. I think this is a short-term fix. I know someone called it damage control based on the negative press they were getting. I wish them well. Look, I don't hate TNA. I really don't. And I'll do a video one day discussing all of that. I don't, but do they make the best decisions in the world? No, they don't. Do I think they could have been more than what they are right now? Abso-fucking-lutely. And I mean, I'll debate that. If there's an Andre Corbiani, doesn't like what I'm saying, listen, I like your videos, but this is just how I view TNA at this point. They're not what they could be, and that's just my belief, and I'll stop there. What do I think about this Tito stuff? I wish him well. I wish him well. If it gets him out of the negative energy with the Jenna Jameson stuff and all the financial stuff he's going through, I wish him well. I really do. I don't think, though, in the long term, you can build, if you're an MMA promotion, around Tito Ortiz. Just have him in there for a short-term fix, build up a big card as a special attraction, and put a Michael Chandler on there, and put a Ben Askren on there, or a Bubba Jenkins, all these guys that are coming up, and let them get the rub off of the eyeballs that see the Ortiz and Rampage fight. Anyways, as for pro wrestling, I say do the same strategy. I'm going to stop. I need to get out. I need to stop talking. I need to do some other things, like get some sleep, because I haven't had some sleep in a while. I'm going to probably start doing something about comic books soon, so another stereotype I'm playing up to. You'll be surprised. Anyways, I am out of there. If you haven't seen me before and you've the first time viewing me, thank you. I'm BuffbeenStuffed. I do wrestling videos, I do MMA videos, I do boxing videos. I do everything that people like us like. Tune in if you want to. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, comment, rate, subscribe, share, do what you want, do what you will. And listen, if there's a guy that needs to talk about situations like that, it's me. I mean, come on. Anyways, I'm out of here. Take care. Good luck. Love you all.